Okay, well, today I'm going to try and talk about my procedural generator I made and how you can try and make it yourself even if you aren't using the same coding language as me. So first off, I'll just show the actual itch.io page you can go to if you want to check it out. It's just simply under my profile here, and it's just the basic one that has like .zip file that only contains just like a few picture files that are used to use with it, and just the actual code, which is like a few kilobytes, I think. I haven't checked. Anyway, so I'll actually show you how it works. So here you can input the amount of horizontal tiles and then the amount of vertical tiles. Maybe wondering why this is zoomed out, and that's because this is actually meant so you can see the entire map when it generates. And the standard for this is 100 for each of those, so I'm just going to click it just so you can see. Now something to bear in mind is that for this like basic one you can find on itch.io, this one it doesn't really have a loading bar or whatever, or just anything until it's loading, so you just simply have to wait. And that's because if like someone's using this in their game, I want it to be so that they have to change as little as possible for their game, and all they need to do is just simply create their own little loading system if they want it. And also want to speed up the loading process. Now, as you can see in this, there's like all these islands that are being generated. Granted, some are not exactly the best, but you have these larger ones that like work for what they're supposed to be. Now, the way this is made is through a system that's kind of similar to just, well, basically it generates a bunch of random values for tiles, like all 10,000 of these tiles are going to be on the screen. And then what it does is it goes through some checks, like via something similar to like cellular automaton, which I covered in one of these videos I watched. I might be able to post a link in the description if I can find it. So here I'll show the actual code, which all has comments for if you're actually looking on the itch.io version. So this way, if you want to, you can just go in and change some things so that it can work for you. Now, like, there's just some simple things I can go over real quick, like this is just how many tiles are horizontally, like that says. These are vertically, and these three are used in like this little first generation command, just used to get the original values of all the tiles. And if you're going into this, like just to mess with it, you don't really need to worry about this variable, because it's mainly used for like updating functions or whatever, just like doing them multiple times. So here's the one that generates the original values. Basically, what it will do is it will just go like horizontally, keep adding one each time, like making sure like they're all like spaced out the correct amount. Which, if you're modifying this, then this is the amount of pixels, like the file, whatever it is, like horizontally. Then this is how many pixels to the right, to the leftmost part of the screen you want it to be. And that's actually the same for this part, so you just change it for both of them. And this is the amount vertically, and then this is like how much like vertically from the top you want it to be. Anyway, this is the main part that matters in this function when you're going to be modifying it, probably, because this determines how much water or sand there is. So this is using the random number generator, and what it will do is that if it is less than 6, then the tile will be water. If it is more than 5, it's going to be sand. So in this version, it's going to prioritize more water due to this. However, if you say decrease this to 5, it's going to make more like larger islands and possibly continents, which I can actually show in a bit. Now here you don't need to really worry about this. It's just a console command that tells you like the latest type, x value, y value, or like the current tile, and also their number. And then this just right here is just simply my way of trying to prevent the thing from simply overloading and just dying. So like every time it's going to try and do like as fast as possible for like 10 times or whatever. But then as soon as that happens, it's going to take 1 millisecond to make sure it catches up. It doesn't overload or whatever. Now right here, if you're editing, this is going to possibly be important because this determines how many times this command here will be done, which is actually used to generate the islands. And it uses like the cellular automaton stuff. So the basic version on itch.io uses only 1. However, in the game I'm using this for, I actually up this to 3 because I also increase the amount of land. So over here, this is what is mainly used to try and generate the islands. So for all these are just basically getting the tile numbers of the tiles all around the block, just using some basic math. So this one gets on the tile number, the one right above it. This gets the top left, top right, bottom, then bottom left, bottom right, then left, then right. And then these can just tell you the tile numbers themselves as well, just in case you want to check that. So then here, this is where I guess more of the magic happens. So basically, if it detects that the tiles are water, it's going to increase a variable, and if that variable is more than 4, which because the tile is being checked is going to be surrounded by 8 tiles, that will mean that predominantly the tiles around there are going to be water. So therefore, it's going to turn the water as well. Then for this one, it does the same thing, except it checks to see if it's surrounded by land. If it's surrounded by land, it turns to sand. Then finally, this is actually something that's done in the last part, in the last of the checks. And then basically what's going to do is, if it's surrounded by sand, it's also sand, it's going to turn into grass. However, it requires one more block than normal, because that's mainly used to make sure that sand blocks right next to the water don't just all get turned into grass. And then this is just used simply to try and the function multiple times, and those are just some other things that you really don't need to worry about all that much. And then finally here, this is actually what displays the tiles on the screen. So basically, it just creates a new image each time with the variables that have been assigned to each tile, and then it will just generate them. And that's basically how this works. So it's similar to Cellular Automaton because it just checks what things are near each tile, and it changes them accordingly, so there's some rules to it. So now I'll show you how it works in this thing. So this thing does actually have an actual loading system, kind of. It just gives a brief description of what's happening. So when it says this, that means it's checking. And the first thing, for creating tiles, it was given the original values. Checking takes the longest, since it's basically, in this thing, it's 3 times as long as the actual assigning values thing, because it's basically going through all those tiles again, but each time it's also checking to see the different things about them. So it should get done in just a second, and the loading process, as you saw before, generates kind of strips at a time. Okay, here it is. So and that's because I upped the amount of sand, then that has made it there's these larger amounts of land. So there's kind of continents, essentially. And I've done this for this game because it's going to be a city building game, so you're going to want a lot more land compared to the water. Granted, there is still going to be a large amount of water, which I plan to make it so you can build bridges to go across. When we talk about that game, it's not exactly the point of this video, so I'll still try and stick to procedural generation. So basically, it's really simple to do it this way, because all you're doing is just something similar to Cellular Automaton, and you're changing changing each tile to try and adapt to the tiles that are near it. And that can lead to certain shapes being predominant. Well, this one you'll maybe sometimes see. You'll see one that has more of 2 tiles here, then 2 tiles there, then the same thing repeat on each side. Because basically what will happen is that first the sand that will be there will turn to water, because I'll just take this one as an example, kind of. So basically this piece of sand will turn to water, but then since it's surrounded by sand or land, it will turn back into sand, so it's always going to stay like that. And if you run more checks, you can probably get rid of stuff like this, maybe this. So yeah. I hope that you guys enjoyed and this actually helps you in your game making.